The cries of a little girl echoed down the narrow street that day. Soft at first, then desperate, like a bird beating its wings against a locked cage. "Please, my arms are tired, I can't hold it anymore." Her tiny voice cracked under the weight of exhaustion, yet no one seemed to care. Neighbors who passed by simply lowered their heads, unwilling to invite trouble into their lives. But what they saw was haunting. A frail little girl no more than 8 years old, holding 2 heavy buckets of water that were far too big for her trembling arms. Standing behind her, with crossed arms and a look of cold superiority, was her stepmother. The girl's name was Lily. Since losing her mother at only 5 years old, her life had turned into a cruel test of endurance. Her father remarried quickly, hoping Lily would once again know the warmth of a woman's love. Instead, he unknowingly placed his daughter in the hands of someone who saw her not as a child, but as a burden. "Don't you dare drop those buckets, Lily," the stepmother hissed through clenched teeth. "If you want food tonight, you'll carry your share of work." Lily's thin arms shook violently as she tried to steady the water. Her eyes glistened with tears, her lips trembling as she whispered again, "Please, my arms are tired." But the answer was always the same: scolding, insults, and threats. What Lily didn't know was that someone else had stopped at the corner of the street. Someone who was watching with growing rage. A man who had built an empire with his bare hands, who had known hunger, pain, and loneliness in his own childhood. That man was Richard Hale, a millionaire whose name was often printed on the covers of business magazines, but whose soul never forgot the sting of being helpless as a child. Richard hadn't planned to be there that day. He had driven into that quiet part of town because his car had taken a wrong turn, and instead of frustration, fate handed him a sight that pierced his heart. A child begging for mercy. A child whose voice reminded him of his younger self, once crying out for anyone to step in. "Put those buckets down." Richard's voice thundered as he marched toward them. His presence was tall, commanding, impossible to ignore. The stepmother spun around, startled, but quickly masked her shock with a sneer. "And who are you to interfere?" she snapped. "This is none of your business." But Richard wasn't looking at her. His eyes were locked on Lily, whose small frame sagged under the weight of the buckets. In that moment, she looked up at him, her big brown eyes silently pleading for someone to finally hear her. Richard's heart clenched. "It became my business," he said firmly, "the moment I saw a child being treated like this." With one swift motion, he bent down, gently pried the buckets from Lily's trembling hands, and set them aside. Then he knelt to her level, speaking softly, "You're safe now. No one's going to force you anymore." Lily blinked at him, unsure whether to believe his words. She had learned that promises often came with pain, too, but Richard didn't stop at that street corner. He began to dig deeper into Lily's life. What he uncovered enraged him: a father who was always absent. A stepmother who treated Lily like a servant, neighbors who turned a blind eye out of fear of conflict. Challenges arose quickly. The stepmother lashed out, claiming Richard had no right to interfere, that he was trying to steal her stepdaughter. Even Lily's father, when Richard confronted him, shrugged with indifference. "She's exaggerating," he said coldly. "Our kids complain. Don't meddle in my household." But Richard refused to walk away. He knew what it meant to grow up unwanted, to be told your pain was an exaggeration. He sought legal help, but the process was slow. Meanwhile, he made sure Lily never went to bed hungry again. He would send food, clothes, and books, quietly slipping them into her life like small miracles. And most importantly, he spent time with her, listening, encouraging, reminding her she was worthy of love and respect. Lily blossomed in ways her stepmother never expected. Her smile, once timid and fleeting, grew brighter. She began to draw again, something her late mother had taught her before she passed away. She began to laugh, a sound that startled her stepmother because it carried a strength she thought she had crushed. But every step forward came with resistance. The stepmother tightened her grip, doubling Lily's chores, trying to isolate her from Richard's kindness. At one point, Lily was punished so cruelly, locked outside in the cold, that Richard nearly lost control of his anger. He vowed then that no matter the cost, he would free this little girl from her chains of cruelty. The battle reached its climax in a courtroom. Richard, with his influence and determination, had gathered enough evidence, neighbors' testimonies, photos of Lily's bruises, even recordings of her pleas. The stepmother stood defiant, but her mask of respectability began to crack. The father, pressured by truth and shame, was forced to admit his neglect. Lily sat quietly in the corner of the courtroom, her small hands gripping a pencil she used to sketch a flower on her notepad. When the judge finally declared that she would be removed from her stepmother's custody, she dropped the pencil and covered her face, sobbing, not from fear this time, but from relief. Richard stepped forward, his own eyes moist, and whispered, "You're free, Lily. No more begging, no more pain." From that day forward, Lily's life transformed. Richard didn't just rescue her. He gave her a home, a family, and a chance to dream again. He encouraged her to study, to paint, to believe in herself. And every time Lily faltered, whispering, "I'm tired," Richard was there, reminding her, "Rest, child. You don't carry the world alone anymore." The years later, Lily grew into a confident young woman, her art displayed in galleries, her story inspiring countless others. She often said that the moment everything changed wasn't in the courtroom, or even the day Richard brought her home. It was that first moment on the street when someone finally heard her cry and told her she was safe. To the message, this story reminds us that sometimes the simplest act of stepping in when someone is suffering can change a life forever. No child should have to plead for mercy, and no one's cries should be ignored. Kindness, courage, and compassion can break chains that seem unbreakable. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments below. Share your thoughts, your emotions, or even your own stories of kindness. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to be kind always, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another inspiring story. Together, let's keep spreading the message no matter how small the act. Kindness has the power to change lives.